Hello everyone. I am so sorry that I'm not able to be with you at the Broadmoor today. And I would like to thank Tim Wood and the team at the Denver Gold Group for allowing me to record this update, and of course, Paramount's chairman, Rudy Franck, for standing in for me. For those of you who are new to Paramount, we are a US-based and US-focused company with two 100% owned gold and silver assets in Oregon and Nevada, hosting a combined 4 million ounces of gold resources between them. Kicking off our big year, our flagship asset, Grassy Mountain in Eastern Oregon, was added to the federal Fast 41 list. And while every year has not been as exciting as 2025, we have been blessed with a core shareholder base that has continued to support our efforts during both good times and challenging ones. A couple of names that you will recognize here include Seabridge Gold, who also supports us on the board, and Ausenco, who led the feasibility for study on Grassy and elected to take their compensation in stock. The permitting progress we've seen this year stems from a series of executive orders from the Trump administration specifically related to streamlining the permitting process for mining in the US to promote the growth of a domestic industry that, as this audience knows, will bring much needed economic stimulus and job creation. The March 20th, 2025 executive order, Immediate Measures to Increase Mineral Production, saw the National Energy Dominance Council tasked with identifying mining projects to be added to the Fast 41 list. Not long after, in early May, the Grassy Mountain project was added to the Fast 41 transparency list in the second batch of identified projects. What this means is that the Bureau of Land Management, our lead permitting agency for the federal process, publicly identifies on 2 dedicated websites the targeted completion dates for each step of the permitting process, making it easy for all stakeholders to track. I can share with you that from that time, the BLM has moved with impressive alacrity in allocating very experienced and skilled individuals to our file. In July, we were advised by the BLM that the initial timelines outlined for Grassy had been accelerated. This has culminated in Grassy being the first chemical processing mine of any kind in the state of Oregon to receive a draft EIS. The draft was released on August 8th, and was open for public comment until September 8th, with a public meeting that was held on August 19th. During this time, we also received the renewal of our county-level permits, as they have continued to play a supportive role for us in this process. While the BLM is targeting to have both the final EIS and the record of decision published this December, we're also anticipating that the state-level permitting, which is overseen by the Department of Geology and Mineral Industries, or DOGAMI, will be releasing their draft permits this fall. The state process has gone through multiple steps and many years of review by the various state agencies that follow under the coordinating umbrella of DOGAMI to issue to us one consolidated permit that incorporates all the individual permits and permit conditions from the permitting and cooperating agencies. As Grassy is the first project ever to move through the permitting regime in Oregon, we are somewhat of a guinea pig for the process, which means that overall it has taken more time to get to this point. But as I mentioned at the outset, we finally have excellent visibility that Grassy should be fully permitted by the end of the first quarter of 2026. I expect that not many of you have traveled to Eastern Oregon, but as you can see from the image on the left, the desert terrain looks very similar to Nevada. Grassy Mountain is located on the eastern border with Idaho and is about an hour-and-a-half drive from the airport. This is the actual access road to Grassy, which crosses BLM land to the deposit, which then sits on patented claims that Paramount owns. As part of the project, the road will be upgraded and we will see a power line extended to the site as well. Although you can see from the image on the right that there are no homes, ranches, or farms close to Grassy, the project is both remote but also conveniently located to population centers where we'll be sourcing local labor from. The circumstances in Eastern Oregon are materially different than from the more commonly known and visited coastal areas on the west. Our part of the state is very rural, sparsely populated, and very poor. Malheur County has the highest poverty rate in the state, with a median household income of less than $50,000. By contrast, you can see what a material difference Grassy will make by creating about 110 direct jobs and stimulating the creation of closer to 200 jobs in total. These are estimates for when the mine is up and running, but there will also be a 1.5 to 2 year construction period that will employ about 300 people. Paramount is committed to not just hiring locally, but also working with the educational institutions like the Treasure Valley Community College and local vocational schools to design training programs for the skilled jobs required at the mine. This has translated into very strong support for the project at the local level, but also amongst the politicians from both sides of the aisle at the state and federal level, as they know better than most that there are limited job creation opportunities in Eastern Oregon. Looking at Grassy at the asset level, while we have a total of 1 million ounces identified, our current mine plan only contemplates roughly 40% of those ounces, which are the proven and probable reserves at 6.8 grams per ton. These ounces will be produced from a small footprint underground mine and a 750 ton a day milling operation and a simple CIL recovery process to produce approximately 50,000 ounces gold equivalent per year for an initial 8-year mine life. Our current feasibility study is from 2022, so it will be getting updated in early 26. The study was run at a $1,750 gold price with sensitivity up to $2,100 gold, outlines an initial capex of about $140 million, generating $50 million in after-tax free cash flow annually, and a quick 2.5-year payback at $2,100 gold. This slide helps to illustrate why previous operators envisioned Grassy as an open pit mine, which it certainly could have been, as the mineralization occurs very close to surface. The low-grade material in the purple color starts about 50 meters from surface, and then the high grade, which is the mine we'll be building, indicated in the hot pink, is only about 150 meters from surface. It was Paramount's appreciation that being the first mine to go through permitting in Oregon, that the regulatory, social, and political acceptance would be easier to achieve for a small footprint underground mine as opposed to a big open pit. Fortunately for us, the geometry of the deposit sets up nicely to support the economics of a small underground mine. Nothing else that's depicted here is included in the current mine plan other than the material in excess of 3 grams per ton. I would also highlight that while there have been close to 500 holes drilled into Grassy over the decades, the drilling at depth has been limited. And since the grade improves at depth, drilling from underground, once a decline goes in, will be a priority for the company. We also have a number of near mine exploration targets already identified, so our belief is the current 8-year mine life is really a worst case scenario where we expect to see a meaningful extension. Shifting to Nevada, which is both in our name and in our history, Paramount also owns the Sleeper project in northern Nevada. Sleeper has a storied past as a former producing mine that back in its day was virtually printing money by producing from an open pit, heap leach, and mill scenario with an average grade of 7 grams per ton from the mid-80s to the mid-90s. I think it's fair to say that with gold over $3,000 per ounce, if we still had 7 gram per ton material in Nevada, that we wouldn't have chosen to experiment with permitting in Oregon. But what we do have in Sleeper is a fantastic starting point for an advanced exploration or early stage development property with 3 million ounces of gold, although at lower grades of about 0.3 grams per ton. These are grades that are mineable in today's environment, especially in Nevada. Sleeper also has a huge 40,000 acre land package that is largely contiguous and 40 years of data, including from 10 years of production. The red outline here shows our entire land package, and if I can point you to the little yellow dot, which is the old pit, that's where our current resources sit. This slide gives some additional perspective on the data we have on hand at Sleeper, and it's important to note that perhaps unsurprisingly, the bulk of historic drilling centered around the old pit chasing that 7 gram per ton material. This also means that the rest of our land package is somewhat of a white map and provides a great opportunity to apply newer technology in targeting for future drilling. It's a natural question to ask, why haven't we been more active at Sleeper? But small, capital-constrained companies often need to make difficult decisions. When we acquired Grassy in 2016, the gold price was only about $1,200 an ounce, so Sleeper would not have been economic. At that time, the decision was taken to focus on advancing Grassy with its materially higher grades. As Oregon is a pay-to-play state where we reimburse the agencies for the work they do in assessing our applications and writing permits, the bulk of our human and capital resources have been allocated to Grassy over the last 9 years, meaning that Sleeper has not gotten the attention it now deserves, especially in this higher gold price environment. The final piece of our portfolio is a much earlier stage exploration asset called Bald Peak in Mineral County, Nevada. Bald Peak sits on the red outline here on a parallel structure to good-sized previous producing mines Borealis, Aurora, and Bodhi, which in certain cases are being restarted or evaluated for renewed exploration. Since acquiring the option on Bald Peak, we allocated some capital to shoot geophysics over the property, which lined up nicely with the surface samples taken, yielding grades of up to almost 11 grams per ton. Bald Peak has an existing plan of operations for exploration, and we have a drill program ready to go once we have visibility on the capital required for our primary assets. As a small company, we rely heavily on the expertise of our specialized consultants and our board. You will see the support from Seabridge reflected on our board with Rudy Franck, the founder and CEO of Seabridge, as our chairman, Chris Reynolds, the CFO of Seabridge, as our chair of audit. And the current board and team have literally generations of combined experience across all the key verticals that help guide the advancement of our assets. At the time of recording, Paramount had a $71 million market cap with a similar number of shares outstanding, as we have made a concerted effort over the years to keep the share count low. We are certainly pleased to see recognition for the permitting progress to date reflected in the share price, but I would point out that we're still trading at a very low $16 per ounce of resources, suggesting there is still significant room for further re-rating as the permitting for Grassy comes to fruition. The next milestones to keep on your radar will be the draft permits from the state of Oregon, which we expect this fall, the federal permitting to wrap up this year with the issuance of both the final EIS and the record of decision in December, and then final state permits following in early Q1. So after what felt like a long, cold winter of permitting purgatory, we now have visibility that Grassy could be in construction at this time next year, positioning us to take advantage of these record high gold prices. And with that, I thank you for your time.